We were gonna bike up to there's like a lake. It's like 20 miles away, and then bike on back.
Your sister's doing that?
No, my sister is not there. Dara's not doing that. No, you know that. Well, hey, but since we are now recording, and since we
Okay.
do have some pretty good information to share with our audience, maybe we'll talk about my bike ride at the end when most people actually fall off the video. How's that sound?
Yeah, after they've turned us off. Yeah.
Yeah, we can just keep talking about the bike ride.
Absolutely.
Well, Ray, good morning. Thanks for hopping up, getting up so early to join me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this semi-retirement thing's going straight to hell because of you, but that's okay.
It's our viewers too. They're doing it, not just me. We've got something important to talk about, which is we're in May now, right?
Yeah.
May is an incredibly important month.
Yeah.
It has your birthday in it. That's important.
Yes.
Even more importantly, it's the first full month we're seeing the real impacts of what has happened to the retail automotive business. And Automotive News put out an article yesterday that you shared with me, talking about a whole host of things, but in particular, the big numbers were, like 50% declines in sales for some of the major manufacturers, right?
Yes.
And I thought what we would do here today, this morning, is talk about, from your perspective, having been in the industry for 43 years, what type of impact you think this is going to have? Because as each month comes around, what you've taught me is that you get new incentives from your manufacturers.
Yes. And the longer this goes on, where we have a month-over-month decline in sales from the previous year, as significant as the decline has been, and last month on an average, it averaged over 40% for the industry. And we don't have all the straight figures yet, because many of the manufacturers, instead of doing monthly sales reporting, are now just doing quarterly sales reporting. So we don't have all the data, but the data we have suggests that things are really, really ugly. When you realize that a company like Subaru, which had 11 years straight of month over month, year over year sales increases, and the past 2 months their sales have declined over 50% each month, that's scary. Now, what happens in the manufacturer's mind when that goes on is two things. One, should we slow down production? And in this case, they don't have a choice but to slow down production, because, well, with COVID-19, they're not quite sure how to reopen production and keep their employees safe, since, well, none of them are really standing more than 6 feet apart. So production has pretty much stagnated. The other issue for the manufacturers is the cars that were already built that are sitting on storage lots, whether they have been shipped here from Japan or from England or from Germany, wherever they're coming from. They're sitting on storage lots because, well, dealers are turning down their allocations because, well, if they can't sell any cars, they don't want any more cars.
And I don't know, did you see, because I know very recently your video from back in December, I think it was, where we talked about unsold cars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gotten a lot of traction recently. And I don't know if you saw the Bloomberg article yesterday. I think it was actually quoted in the Automotive News piece. There are like giant shipping vessels off the coast of California that can't, or at least like they were very delayed in dropping off inventories of 2,000 Toyotas and Infinities because they didn't know where to put them. I mean, has that ever happened before? I don't think so.
Well, that becomes an issue. The storage of them becomes an issue. One of the offshoots of that video is, well, lots of people comment, well, yeah, but the manufacturers destroy their own cars to keep the values up. Well, all I'm talking about in that video is what we did on the retail end of things, not on the wholesale end from manufacturer to dealer. But be that as it may,
yeah,
what happens with these cars sitting on lots and not being dispersed to the dealers, it puts additional pressure on the manufacturers to increase their incentives.
yeah.
Just in April, the average incentive from the manufacturer to the dealers,
Yeah.
or the average cost of the incentive that the manufacturers has put on their cars to sell them, is over $4,000 per car. So, and that was up significantly from April of 2019. I would imagine with cars sitting that we're going to see those incentives increase even more. Where on average it might have been $4,000 per car, on average it might go up to 4,500. Some brands, such as BMW, I mean, their average incentive cost per car is over $6,000.
And just to chime in here, I want to make sure I'm fully understanding. So incentive programs come from the manufacturer monthly, correct?
Correct.
So when you were a general sales manager or a sales manager at the Audi dealership that you used to work at, would you like get a giant PDF that says, all right, here's the programs at the first of the month?
One of the things that all the managers at that store would do is they would print out the book that was sent to you. Every manager had a big 3-ring binder notebook, and they stuck all the pages in there, and there might have been 80 pages. Now, I don't want you to think that I was any kind of genius, because obviously just listening to me, I'm not. but I was smart enough to just put it on my desktop as a PDF and open it and go to whatever page I needed to read on whatever deal I was doing, rather than, I don't know, make more Brazilians mad at us because I was printing an extra 80 pages of stuff. But yes, every month they come out with new incentives.
Okay, so every month as a management team, you're reviewing your incentives.
Yes.
Then the thing that I want to paint the picture of is the data that you're pulling from automotive news is about April. And what we also saw in the data that we got from April was, that the sales were down considerably, 40% across the industry. But for example, you mentioned like BMW, they did something that was also really strange. They haven't reported monthly sales. They've actually said instead they're going to report quarterly now, which I'm putting my thinking cap on. I'm a business person. I like entrepreneurship. If I've got shareholders that I report to, the reason I want to go quarterly instead of monthly is because maybe I can incentivize enough sales in May and June to make the quarter look a little bit better than it really was. So my question to you would be, and you've still got plenty of friends that are working at BMW dealerships if they haven't been furloughed. I mean, what's in those 80 pages, do you think? I mean, it's got to be that. Then let's use BMW as the example again. They had $6,000 in incentives on average last month to the dealer from the manufacturer. I mean, that's got to go even higher in May and June, doesn't it?
Oh, I would think. I would think, and when we talk about incentives like that the average cost per vehicle sold for that manufacturer, like BMW was $6,300 or something like that. That's across their entire model lineup. Yeah. So it might have only been $3,000 incentive per 3 Series, and it might have been $12,000 incentive per 850.
Yeah.
So but the average is 60 some $100. Now here's the real kicker for people. Customers think the dealerships are making all the money. Well, obviously it's the manufacturers that are making all the money, because if they can afford to subsidize the sale of their vehicles by $6,300 per car and still be making money, that gives you some idea as to what the manufacturer is doing. Now, the poor dealers, their margins 3, 4, 8, 10, 12%, and they'll give most of that away in order to clear the vehicles off the lot.
Yeah, which I think is really important to bring up. I've been working for a client recently trying to get a Jeep Gladiator. I've actually got 2 Jeep Gladiator deals I'm working on right now. Mm-hmm. And Jeep is not, I mean, Jeep's owned by FCA. I was doing another Chrysler car recently. The incentives there, even last month, were insane. But then on the Gladiator, you can't move them. And that's even, I'm talking to the sales manager, and he's telling me, we're in deep on this one. We're losing money no matter what. But there's still no incentives for the Gladiator. And that goes back to the manufacturer being a bit picky about where to place the incentives.
Well, they know what's moving and what's not. In the old days, for instance, when there was 0% financing offered on a particular model, the reason that 0% financing was offered was because, as a rule, there was 0% interest in the car. Nobody wanted it. So that the only way they could get people interested in it was to create such a tremendous incentive on it that
Yeah.
people would go, well, even though I don't really like that car, at 0%, I think I'd take it.
And so you and I have talked about in some other videos, and you've preached it, and even before we were making videos, you preached this to me. The long-term loans and financing incentives are cool, but they're really not in your best interest because of the negative equity in the vehicle. What
Mm,
types of incentives do you think we'll start to see in the month of May or in June? And how can customers, you and I do this for a living. You did it even longer than, of course, I have, but negotiate car deals so they, yeah, negotiate car deals so that they can, take what we're talking about and put it into practice.
Well, you just have to, you have to ask. Don't be afraid to ever ask at a dealership, what are your incentives from the manufacturer on whatever model it is.
And you
Uh,
did a
y-
whole video on that
yeah,
I can,
I mean, just
I'll link.
ask what they are. What's your monthly sales volume objective from the manufacturer? Does this car that I'm looking at count towards that objective? If it does, how close to that objective are you? Are you willing to lose a little money to get a little closer to your objective? I mean, you just have to ask.
Yeah.
The smart dealerships that are looking to turn metal into cash will tell you what that is. Now, are there dealerships out there that won't be honest and open and transparent with you? Of course there are.
Yeah.
But I think more often than not today, with cash flow being an issue for most dealerships, they'll be pretty open and honest with you. They're just looking to move the metal to turn it into cash. Now, obviously, there's some parts of the country where things are closer to normal than they are in other parts of the country, and in those parts, they're not going to deal as much as they might in the Northeast or in California. So it depends. It could be regionalized. Incentives from the manufacturers are often regionalized based on what the excess volume of vehicles are in that particular region. So you just have to ask. And if you don't get the answer, ask again. And if you don't get the answer, ask for the manager. And eventually you'll get the answer. And should you have to go through all that? No. But might you have to go through all that? Probably. The smart dealers that have gone to negotiation-free selling or a transparent selling type of platform, it won't be as difficult to get the information. But the old school dealers that are stuck in their ways, it's going to be more difficult there than it would be at some other dealerships.
And I guess I just have a bit of a tangent question for you, which is, when you were in that, when you were the manager that people came to,
Mhm.
I mean, you took short deals, you took losses at the end of months to hit factory incentives, didn't you?
Absolutely. I couldn't work for somebody and say pass on a car deal that might net us an extra $100,000 in bonuses and incentives from the manufacturer. How could I look the dealer in the eye and say, you know what, I passed on losing $1,000 on that car deal, and so we didn't hit the 100,000. I think the dealer would look at me and say, Ray, lose the 1,000 and I'm net 99,000. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So yes, you take car deals that are losers. I know people don't want to believe that, but you take car deals that are losers because you're working to get the incentive money and the sales objective money from the manufacturers. The manufacturers have created a playing field today with the way they do things with their bonus programs that cause the dealers to just give the cars away, to not really try to make a big profit um, in order to hit those objectives, because the cash rewards for hitting those bonuses are so significant that they've just bastardized the product to get there. They've ruined the value.
I think part of what's hard, because I'm the consumer, right? I've been on both sides, and you I think we're a little deeper on the car business side than I've ever been.
Yes.
Is they don't take short deals every time, right? And knowing that you could be the one that gets them to lose $1,000, but realizing that you might not be the one, I think that's a bit frustrating for customers. But what
Yeah.
we're seeing is that from the manufacturer side, they need to move inventory, and they're incentivizing their dealers to move inventory. And that's going to accelerate here in May. And most likely it's going to continue because we don't see a turnaround imminent.
Yes. And I think from what you just said, most people would prefer if it was just, if there was an established, the selling price was based on what the average transaction prices are. So instead of their cars having an MSRP and you negotiate off of that,
Yeah.
the manufacturers figure out what the usual transaction price is and they price the car there, and that's what it sells for. And if it's $23,857 at one Ford dealer, it's $23,857 at the other Ford dealer, and nobody's paying a bigger profit than anybody else. That's the part that the people hate. You know, I used to tell people I'm a potato farmer and I have to fill my bushel basket with potatoes every month. Okay, and the dealer just cares that I have a full bushel basket. And in that basket will be some big potatoes where I made a lot of profit. There'll be some medium-sized potatoes where I made an okay profit. And there'll be a lot of small potatoes, especially at the end of the month, to get me to my objective, where maybe I made a little profit or I didn't make a profit at all. And what people want to know is that they're all small potatoes. Nobody wants to be the big goddamn potato. And I get that. And that's why in my heart of hearts, I really believe that they just establish what the value of the car is, and it's the
Yeah.
same everywhere, and everybody pays the same profit.
No,
Nobody,
I hear you.
nobody wants to be the guy that, like, my customers just tell me, you don't need to make money off of me. Every one of my customers would tell me that.
Yeah.
I said, well, at the end of the year, then I got to make $23 million off of that last customer that comes in. That doesn't work. But if we were making $100 on every customer, then maybe that would work if everybody was paying the same profit structure.
You've got me thinking about.
That's my rant for the day. I apologize.
No, no. I mean, you've got nothing to apologize for. You're 68, turning 69 years old. You've been doing this your whole life. It paid for the roof over my head and all those baked potatoes that we ate for dinner. That's honestly what I was thinking about. Is you used to make some killer baked potatoes. Yeah, you've maybe comment down below if you want to see Ray make a baked potato. It's spectacular. Um, but in all seriousness, I hear you loud and clear, and we see some innovators in the field that are doing that. But the reality is what the reality is right now. And from the data that we can see and from the experience that you can draw on, now looks like a good time to be thinking about a new car. We have another video very recently that we talked about used cars. I looked at the latest data. Used car retail prices are still only down 2%. Okay, the wholesale market's really screwed for used cars. Still hold out is our take on buying a used car. Wait till
Absolutely.
there's no reason, unless you need to buy a used car right now, which we're working with some clients, they need to buy a used car right now. The prices are probably gonna go down, especially as the rental car fleets and things like that.
Yes.
New car side, however, the April data and some of the pivots to how BMW is going to be reporting their numbers and other manufacturers are going to be reporting their numbers, and the information about the incentives that they're giving to their dealership partners, it points to you can get a pretty good deal, and it's not clear how long that's going to last. You might want to take advantage of that now.
Yes. And also bear in mind that it's regionalized.
Yeah, definitely regionalized. And also we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't guarantee that you're going to be the one that takes the gets the short deal at a dealership, but it could be out there for you.
If you know what you're doing, and I'll say it again, towards the end of the month, the last couple of days of the month, when the dealers are really stretching to get to their monthly objective or their
The
quarterly
potato
objective.
farmer analogy going, right? When the
Yeah,
dealers are farming, but the
yeah.
crops didn't come to rise and they need some small potatoes.
You could end up being a small potato. You don't want to be that spud in the beginning of the month.